Chris, Ryan, can you share one personal, one professional, and one peculiar fact about yourself?
Peculiar fact about me, I don't know if it's that peculiar, but a lot of people make comments when I talk to them about, geez, you've done a lot of things in your life. You've had a lot of different jobs. So I owned a pub, a nightclub, I managed a motel, I owned a series of paintball fields, and I've been a council worker, I've been in charge of a regional airport, I've done tourism and economic development, and now I'm doing simulators. So it's been a fairly kind of broad range of things, but you'd be surprised how transferable the skills are from all of those things into the job I'm doing right now.
Chris, tell us two truths and a lie.
Ryan Aerospace has sold over 600 simulators now to military organisations all over the world. That's one. Two, Ryan Aerospace got its start due to a Division 1 lotto win to get us up and going. And I once went on a date with the runner-up to Miss America.
Well, that's going to be hard to confirm which of those is a lie. Chris, tell us, are you R.M. Williams or Blundstones? Which one and why?
Blundstones. I could never afford R.M. Williams.
What are the three things we'll likely find you doing after work?
Twice a week I'll go to the gym and be good, but every other night it'll be VB, cook, red wine. That's it.
What are your top three weekend rituals or hobbies?
Oh, I just told you.
Having started in the council originally, what drew you to working in the Australian defence industry?
Well, we've got a fairly long history with the Australian defence industry. My dad was in the CMF back in the day and assumed he was going off to World War II, but he was it finished when he was only 17. But he had a real interest in the military. So much so, he bought a whole bunch of vehicles and planes and tanks and guns, and eventually got to the stage where he made a military museum. So I was really keen on all of that, and he was also a pilot and owned an aeroplane, so that was where the love of aviation came in. And then, of course, joining the Army Reserves in an infantry corps, it kind of gave me the insight as to what defence looked like and what defence industry looked like. But when I got into the industry, it was almost by accident. I was trying to find a better way to train myself to fly a helicopter, so that when I went out I could actually fly the thing, not fumble around like I did on my first lesson. So that's how I got into it.
Chris, tell us a bit more about Ryan Aerospace and just moving on from that initial story, how you set it up, and then tell us what does Ryan Aerospace actually do? Well,
it started back in about 1984. My dad and mum bought me a Commodore 64 computer, and on there I was able to have a little rudimentary flight simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator 2.0, not like that dodgy Povo 1.0. I had the colour version, and it was a pretty terrible simulator, but it was great because I was learning to fly fixed-wing aircraft at the time. It wasn't until about 2000 I decided to do a helicopter lesson and see what that was like. And when I found it was hard to fly a helicopter, when we got on the ground, I said to the instructor, "Is there a simulator that I can train on and learn the motor skills that I'm lacking?" And he said, "I don't think there is. Someone should invent that." So I did. I knocked one up in the back shed, and when I went back, I could fly the helicopter. I could hover, I could take off, I could land, I could fly sideways. And the instructor said, "Geez, this must be a realistic simulator you've built." And I said, "No, it's terrible. It's like an office chair with a bit of PVC pipe stuck to the side of it." And he said, "Why don't you make a commercial version?" So I did. And my first customer was the Royal Air Force in England. And they said, "We've been looking for something like this, but there's just nothing like it on the market." And so much so I went over there to do the installation in 2006. And while I was there, they even let me fly one of the helicopters. I'm hovering the helicopter there at one stage, and he goes, "Oh, you're doing really well. How many helicopter hours do you have?" And I said, "About 3.5. And he went, "Oh yeah, 3,500. And I went, "No, just 3.5. And he went, "Oh Jesus," he's grabbed the controls. So I thought you were like an instructor or army or something, whatever. And I said, No, I'm just a council worker. So
And tell us about Ryan Aerospace today, from that auspicious have a go, Aussie crack, have a crack at it. Where's Ryan Aerospace now?
Well, it was a long time building. It's been over 20 years, and selling 1 or 2 or 3 simulators a year, and just enough to fund the next overseas junket, because I hit the trade show circuit, attended a lot of the defence trade shows overseas, and started getting a little bit of interest. And it wasn't until about 2018 the US Army showed some interest, and they ended up buying about 40 simulators off me, and that was the big kickstart. And then in 2020 we got offered to go and do a pitch to the US Air Force as part of their pilot training transformation program, and it was an opportunity nearly missed, because on the day that I was flying out, Mum rang me and said, "Hey, look, really sorry to tell you this, but we're starting Dad on palliative care tonight. This is it." And I said, "Okay, well, hardly unexpected, but it was really still a shock." I said, "Okay, well, let me get my head around that. I'll cancel my flights and I'll be in Dubbo tomorrow." And she said, "No, we've all talked about it as a family. You need to go. You need to go to this pitch, because that's what Dad would have wanted." Besides that, my sister, who is a marketing manager for Tennis Australia, she travels all over the world. She's always away somewhere, and so am I, but we're never in the same place at the same time. But she had left for the US that morning, not only the US, Boston, which is where we were going. And so after a bit of soul searching, I decided, all right, I'm going to go. And my brother John sent me a video, and it was my dad's last words to me, and he said, "Good luck in Boston." And he gave me the thumbs up, and I went to Boston. The next day he passed away. The day after that we did the pitch to the US Air Force. There were 21 consortiums that went for this job, and we won it. And that resulted in the sale of about, I've lost count, probably 400 simulators since then. So I know he's up there looking after me.
It was meant to be.
Yep.
So, Chris, describe to us, what is the actual problem that your business solves? What specifically does your business aim to solve in the defence space?
In defence space, it's pretty clearly defined. There's a severe pilot shortage, there's a severe instructor shortage, and to some extent there's an aircraft shortage. Our simulators are a little bit different to the traditional kind of simulators. Traditional simulators are big, bulky, expensive, hard to get students through. They're often breaking down, and you need to have an instructor there the whole time, and you need to have a support team there the whole time. Our simulators, we'll have 20 or 30 of these lined up in a room, and students are teaching themselves through predefined lessons with predefined parameters. And the after-action review allows the student and the instructors to see how the student performed. So this means now one instructor can look after maybe 10 or 15 students at a time and get all those metrics back to say whether the student's performing or not. And if they're not performing, where are they failing? And how can we get this student back up to speed? So the sheer scale is probably the biggest thing about our simulator type, and luckily we were first to market, which enabled us to get us into all of these markets.
So it's a really short learning loop, isn't it?
Yeah, we had to scale very quickly. And I remember when we were doing the Air Force pitch, we only had 2 weeks' notice and had to ship a machine, and we had to design some new stuff and get it over there. And it was funny because we won that contract for US Air Force fixed-wing simulators, beating out all these other consortiums, and we'd actually never built a fixed-wing simulator. We'd only built helicopter simulators. But the US Army program was so successful, they kind of looked at us and went, well, we know that you can do that. So the thing that we're worried about is scale. How are you going to scale up? And I said, oh no, don't worry about that. We've got all the drawings, we've got the people, we've got the technology, we're moving into a bigger factory and all these things. And they said, yeah, but we're still worried about it. And I said, well, what sort of numbers are we talking? And he said, well, for prototype, it'll be about 100. And after that, it could be in the thousands. And I just said, I thought we were only building a few simulators for you. And like I said, it's been over 600 simulators now, and a big portion of those have gone to the US Army, Navy and Air Force.
Chris, how can the Australian Defence Force or the Australian Government better support your business or others like it?
The Australian Defence is kind of a funny one for me, and that's because that's where I started out, trying to sell to defence, and I just couldn't get it over the line. It was just, everything took so long, and it was just a really difficult process. And not only that, the market is quite small in Australia, so that's why I started hitting the trade show circuit overseas and going for those bigger contracts. But I still hope that we will sell to the Australian Defence Force. We've got about 20 or so simulators with Army and Navy in recruiting and STEM activities, and we've got a few sims at Oki for Apache testing. But you know, I'm an Aussie. I want to sell to the Australian Defence Force, and luckily, with the support of the Australian Defence and the Australian Government, it's helped us scale and it's helped us export, which has increased our capability. So now we are in a much better place than we were 15 years ago, and we've got the capacity now to be able to deliver products that are going to help the warfighter, and that's sort of the number one thing on our mind at the moment.
Chris, who in the Australian Defence Force or the Australian defence industry has inspired you most, and why?
There was I was doing a trade show. It was Avalon Air Show down in Melbourne about 2007 or 2008 or something like that, and there was a guy selling flight helmets next to me, and he said to me at the end of the show, how did you go? And I said, I was a bit disappointed. And he said, disappointed? Why were you disappointed? You had 50 people lined up to have a go of your simulator, and the whole time you had the busiest stand on the floor. And I said, yeah, but I didn't make a sale. And he said, yeah, all right. Well, let me tell you something about trade shows, and I know a thing or two about them because I've been doing them for 30 years. You don't sell at trade shows. You sell as a result of the relationships that you build up over a long period of time at trade shows in Australia and overseas. And it was just one of those penny drop moments for me. It was like this complete stranger giving me permission to do something that I always wanted to do but never got around to it, was to work overseas. It was just a passion that I had. I loved to travel, but I didn't get to travel so much. I'm off to London in a couple of weeks. It'll be my 77th overseas trade show. And it does take time. It takes time and it takes money. I hate to think how much money I've spent on trade shows over the years, but that's where it's come from. So it's one of those little things that someone said that's made a big impact.
Name 3 defence capabilities you've heard about that you'd love to see Australia acquire.
If money wasn't an object, I'd like to see aircraft carrier capability, and then you've got and I hate to say it, but unmanned. You've got the Loyal Wingman, Ghost Bat. There's a great opportunity there. If I was a younger man and starting out in this industry, I'd be all over the drones, and that is going to be such a huge growth area, and that's a capability, and we've seen it in the most horrifying way over the last few years, just how important unmanned and drones are going to be to the defence.
Chris, I don't want to offend you here, but is it true that defence industry folks have no sense of humour?
Defence industry folks have no sense of humour. No, that's completely not true. I can tell you, with my experience in the defence industry and a little bit of experience in defence, that they do have a sense of humour. It's just not a very good one.
What's one of the toughest professional decisions you've ever had to make?
A couple of years ago, I was approached by a prime contractor, and they wanted to buy a bunch of simulators off us, but it conflicted a little bit with another customer that I had. And even though I wasn't exclusive with them, I said to this particular prime contractor, we can't provide you with these simulators, and that's turning down a $500,000 job. But our corporate values are it's all about ethics, moral compass, facing north all the time. And as it turned out, we ended up getting that contract about a year later, and it went through the process, and it came through our other trusted partners over there.
Chris, second last question. If you're a defence capability, which one would you be and why?
Which defence capability would I be? It's got to be the Apache. Yeah, it's such a beautiful / ugly, mean-looking machine. And I just love it, and I'm so happy that Australia's getting them. It's it's been my favourite aircraft for a long time. I'd love the opportunity to get in one. I know quite a few Apache pilots, and I love hearing their stories about it. And yeah, that's what I'd be.
Last question, Chris. If you could spend a day inside any defence capability with any global defence force, which would it be, and what would you want to learn?
I've already spent quite a few days on base with the US Air Force, and being a Top Gun fan back in the day, and still, it was really interesting to see how many similarities between Top Gun and what it's really like over there, and I just love being on base. And in 2018, I drove through the gates of Fort Rucker in Alabama, and I just thought, this is the dream. This is where I need to be. This is where they train up to 1,300 helicopter pilots a year. It's the biggest training facility in the world, and I've been there 3 or 4 times, and every time I go there, I just love it.
Chris Ryan from Ryan Aerospace, thank you for your time.
Thanks, mate.